So now we're going to use a wood panel and create some artwork. So I use this enamel paint to protect my wood panel. If I did it right on the wood, the alcohol ink would just absorb right in. So I want to make sure to cover all of the edges and sides fully. And I usually put a few layers of this on. I want to make sure it's all sealed and protected. And it just gives me a nice white base to work with. And the easiest way to get a nice smooth coat is a roller. You could use a brush, but then you're going to run the risk of having brush strokes all the way through it. By using a roller, you don't get any brush strokes. You get a little bit of dimpling just from the paint, but that doesn't necessarily affect the alcohol inks as much. Once you've got a coat on there, you're going to let it dry, and then, like I said, add a couple extra ones. Make sure it's all completely covered so that you've got a nice protected wood panel. And this one that I'm working on is an 8x8 wood panel, simply so that it would take a little bit less time to do it on camera. You could use as big or small of one as possible, or as you'd like. The other thing, I'm doing it right on the wood panel with it being sealed with the paint. You could, if you want, do your artwork on Yupo and then glue it to the panel. So I'm using Rosewood Alcohol Ink, and if I remember correctly, it was Foundry Alloys. If it was not that, I will put it in the description. I'm going to use the alcohol inks and put the alloy right on top, and I'm using my blower to blow it around. And I do have this video done at double speed just for time management. You get the gist of what I'm doing. You don't necessarily need to see it in real time to understand that. And as I said before, I tend to always work from the top left to the bottom right. So I'm doing that again. And once again, you could use different colors, like several different colors, to create this piece. I tend to prefer using one color and then one either mixative or alloy. It's just my personal preference. But once again, I'm making sure to have some dark areas and some light areas. And I really love how the alcohol ink kind of fades into the paint. It does stain more than it would, say, if you were working on Yupo. You'll notice that once it's dried, once I rehydrate it with the isopropyl alcohol, it doesn't really move too much. I can fade it a little bit, but there will still be some of the alcohol ink there. So you just have to be mindful of that when you are working on it. You want to make sure that you don't put alcohol ink where you don't want it. Only put it where you're absolutely certain you want to have some color. And then I'm actually letting the alcohol ink flow over the sides. And once it gets to the point where I'm done the front of it, I will take a brush and make sure that the alcohol ink kind of flows a little bit more evenly down the sides. I want to have it looking nice around the edges as well, and not just the front. The other thing you could do if you wanted was, once this is completely done and completely dried, you could take your paint that you use to base coat the wood panel and you can paint over top of it if you wanted. But I like having the front colors wind over the sides. And you'll notice this one, I didn't just do the top left to the bottom right, I added some more on the sides. I wanted to have a little bit of that done as well. But like I said, it's your artwork. There is no right or wrong. You do it how you like it. And if you wanted to have the entire piece completely covered, that's absolutely okay too. You can absolutely do that. And again, I'm using my alcohol ink blower. You could use a compressor, you could use canned air for this, it would work as well. So right now I've got a little bit of the isopropyl alcohol and I'm taking a little bit of the rosewood and I'm just brushing and filling in the areas on the side of the panel that the alcohol ink missed when it was running over it. I want to make sure to do that on all four sides. Sometimes the patterns the alcohol ink makes when it runs down it is neat, but it may not be the look that you're going for. So you want to make sure that everything is completely how you like it before you end up sealing your artwork. And I add the isopropyl alcohol to it just to thin the color out a little bit and to make it flow a little bit better. It doesn't, the parts that I'm painting, they don't need to be dark. They can be a little bit lighter, just like the front of the piece has some darker areas and lighter areas. But you definitely want to make sure that parts that should be red or whatever color you're working on are covered. And this is just an inexpensive brush from the dollar store. You wouldn't want to use an expensive brush with this because we're just, like I said, we're just filling in the side. So you don't necessarily want to ruin a brush with some alcohol. And then if you want to brush or want to clean your brush after you're done, you can just clean it with the isopropyl alcohol as well. I love how the red and the gold color look together. It looks quite rich looking. And with this particular alloy, again, I love how you get the gold, but you also get a little bit of a silver tone to it as well. This is quite similar for when you're working with the alcohol on Yupo, the way it flows on it. But like I said, it does stain it, so you can't completely remove the alcohol if it's in a spot that you don't like. You can fade it a little bit, but you can't completely remove it. And then I use the isopropyl alcohol just to fade some of the color, just to make it a little bit lighter, just to create a little bit more depth there. So once your piece is completely finished, these are the two sprays you're going to use. You need to use the Kamar varnish first to seal it in. It's the only aerosol spray that I know of that is not going to affect your alcohol inks. So a few light coats just to seal it in. No heavy coats because it will affect your alcohol ink if you use a heavy coat. And then you can use a UV resist spray. I happen to have matte, but it's also available in glossy. And you can do a few light coats of that. Once you've got it sealed that way, you can spray it with whatever you want, or you can cover it in resin.